Good evening, wherever you may be. I am your humble host, Mr. David Knoll, also known as Hawkeye Two Feathers, and I greet you with the love and the honor of the infinite creator. And I can't tell if this thing's on the right side again or not. There. Okay. Hi, y'all. Morning, afternoon, or evening. I hope you're doing well. So, are your panties in a bunch? I know there are a lot of folks out there like, I don't know what's going on about this alien thing. Well, let me tell you. Um, a- Listen here, Virginia, aliens are real. Um, that looks wrong. Let me do this again. Oh, there I can see the thingies. But anyway, so the aliens are messing with my cell phone. Um, so, how many people are worried about what kind of aliens there are and what's going on? How many people believe that there are aliens? How many people believe that the aliens are demons? How many people believe that the UFOs are from outer space or they're from a different dimension? Or how many people? So, you know what? All of the above are true, except the demon part. You know, there are aliens that look like demons, and, but this idea that all the aliens are demons, that ain't true. Not all aliens are the grays. Not all aliens are the tall whites. Not all aliens are lizard people. There are a lot of them that look like it, though. So how many folks? So there's so many different options. And for those of you who watch Dante and know who he is, there are 79 different races, alien races, at least, that have come to the earth over the many years, and some of them have gone, and some of them are coming back. So, for whatever reason, So one of the things that was brought up years ago was that the reason aliens started showing up recently again was because of the atomic bomb. And that when the United States set off the atomic bomb, that the earth rang like a bell and that it reverberated all over the galaxy and that it made a great noise. And I can imagine that it kind of shattered some eardrums in a way. So, but as I was saying tonight on Robert's channel, Milky Way, about one of the things that they have found not too far from me, about an hour's drive in the Osceola River in North Florida in the Panhandle, years ago, 1956 or 58, I believe, that a diver went down in one of the sinkholes and found a mastodon bone with markings on it that were not natural, they were human made, and some other artifacts like spear points and things like that. And they tested them, and they're over 14,500 years old. And that was done at a time when Florida was above sea level more than it is now. And so, interesting thing, right? And so, here we are. The people can imagine, oh my God, the Bible says we're only, yeah, well, the Bible is a book that was written by men, but history and archaeology and so forth have proven different over the years. There are things in caves that are 14,500 years old in Florida, just an hour's drive from me, mastodon bones and all kinds of stuff. Human beings have been around here for a long time. And one of the things that, that the many tribes have, believed that they come from the stars. The ancestors come from the stars, from the dog star Sirius and from Arcturus and a couple of other places in the universe, just to name a few. And so it's like, are your panties in a bunch? Are you freaked out about aliens? Are you freaked out about how many there are? And there are a bunch of them. So the biggest thing you need to do is come to grips with the idea that this idea of UFOs, USOs, UAPs, and all that, my dear friends, they're real. Okay. Now the tic tac and the this one and the that one and the okay. But the bottom line is that aliens are real. Okie dokie. That's the biggie thingy. And that's the thing that folks ought to really get in their noggins is that, whether or not they're real and, oh, was that UFO that I saw on the thingy? Let's just put it to it, you can look at all of them, but, if you're worried as to whether or not UFOs exist, they're real. Okay. So you need to be nice about it and get real about it and, and stop freaking out about it. Now there's going to be some freaky kind of stuff when you see what some of them aliens look like, and there are going to be people who are going to say, oh, they look like demons. That's true. But that doesn't mean that they are demons. Demons are in a totally different realm from aliens from other places, you know. And yeah, man. Hey, Crow, what's going on? Is my orientation correct with the picture, or am I sideways? It says I'm supposed to turn it, but there again, then all of my notes and everything are this way. Okay, thank you. How you doing, Crow? So, but anyway, so the pennies in a bunch is like that's gonna. Some people are gonna go. Well, I don't. I just don't know. I just don't know. What do you mean, my pennies? Well, because there are folks who are just all scrunched up. Their buns are so scrunched together they don't know what to think about, and a lot of folks are fearful about what's fixing to happen. You know, and there are those. The Masons and the Knights Templar have stated that the date of 6/6/26 is supposed to be a very important day to be aware, to beware. And it's like, well, every day we should kind of be aware because never know. I mean, that God, God forsaken explosion in Dallas today, that it was huge. And, for, whatever had happened, it was a gas leak that exploded. And I've had, instances in my lifetime where gases exploded. I had a gas tank I thought was cleaned out, and I was grinding on that sucker to fix a hole in the gas tank, and it was using the grinder, and some sparks went off, and that gas tank blew up on me. There was no gas in it, hadn't been gas in it. I washed it out several times with water, and as I was grinding on it, that sucker blew up, blew me across the shop. It taught me a thing or two. So the fact that there was a gas leak as big as it was and it blew up the way it did, that's just horrible. So, but anyway, it's good to see you all. I've been having brain issues is the reason I haven't been on more. Plus my cell phone here, and I've decided that I'm going to take my other computer that's underneath this one I got here. I'm not using my computer. Um, And since I can't find out how to get over the YouTube thing with my computer yet, um, I'm going to try another computer and I'm going to load it with Linux and I'm going to start over because this Microsoft business, every other time I turn on the computer, it rearranges things. There's more updates. It's stupid. And so I'm have threatened for years to go to Linux, and I'm finally going to do it. I'm going to do it on another computer though, and hack it, do it, whatever I need to do. And I understand enough of it, I think, to get me in trouble. But there's a new YouTube channel for me, and it's three guys who are like trying to learn how to use Linux. And so I've watched them, and I'm like, okay, I understand what they're doing, and so that gives me the challenge in my old age to get rid of this damn Microsoft stuff once and for all, and try to learn Linux because it's been around for a good long time. I was thinking the same thing. My old Windows 10. Yeah, the Windows 10 ain't near as bad as this Windows 11 stuff. It is ridiculously stupid. And the Microsoft Edge that comes along with it, and you try to get rid of it and don't want to do it, and you try to, oh man, it's a mess. I've had it with Microsoft, just the pad on the you know here on the computer quit working, and it's like what I couldn't do anything with the computer. I had to reboot, do this, do that, and it's just getting worse. So, but yeah, it's time. There are too many people who have been using Linux for a long time. I mean, 10 years ago at least, a friend of mine who was doing computers. Um, it's stressful tech now. Yeah, it's only going to get worse with Windows. You're absolutely right. Might as well learn Linux now because it's open source. It's not packed with just Microsoft. Bill Gates has gotten enough of my money, and they have, looked in on my stuff enough over the years to them, right? So, but anyway, so what about this alien thing? So, recently, Dante's put out, on the Pathfinder channel, the Grosic, which is one of the aliens that had left and has come back, but apparently the Charistus had kind of sort of put a daunting on them when they came, and apparently they came in Iowa of all places. But they're not necessarily good critters, and they look a lot like a demon would be perceived as, but they're not interdimensional beings at all. They're flesh and blood type beings. They're not interdimensional. Now, they may be able to do some camouflage and what would seem to us to be interdimensional, but it's more like a camouflage than anything. But and these critters can materialize through buildings and things, but that's because of tech. That's not because they're demons, right? It's because of tech. And there are other folks that are able to beam me down, Scotty, kind of thing. So, but um, I guess for the last 15, 20 years, I've known about some of this stuff. And so it is not new to me. And my panties are not in a bunch. I don't even have a knot in my yonder areas. Um, but other people who have not studied and witnessed and things and understood and been around, Dante's channel and Pathfinder and other channels and so forth to see what some of these actual um, aliens look like, you know. So having been, um, I say associated with Dante's channel and, the things that the Charistas have shown, I'm like, that look at that one. Oh, and also, the alien, um, the alien book, I think I still have a copy somewhere on a hard drive or thumb drive. Um, but that, so if you went down the alien handbook and looked at the different alien types and what they were, configured, and when the last time they were on Earth and stuff like that. And so it's like, so I knew about the alien handbook years ago, but, shows the good education Dante gave us. Absolutely. Life changing info with big puzzles. Absolutely. And for myself, as you probably know, some of those things that he has shown us over the years have just, on my own, I have been able to, yep, that's true. Yep, I saw that painting. And yep, there's a UFO up there in the top of the painting. And yep, that painting was done, almost 2,000 years ago. And yep, I mean, there's so many things. And it's like, so number one, folks are like, UFOs real. It's like they have been with us for thousands of years. The ancients have said, that one of the cards I pulled tonight was the whale card, and the whale card is, that the whale holds the memory, and was put here by the ancients from the dog star. That's what the native folks believe. Not, I didn't dream this up. They've known this for thousands of years. So it's like, oh my goodness, aliens, are they real? The native folks, in America and South America and in Australia and other places, in Africa, they believe this as part of their ancestry. So, but the white man's going to have a hard time catching up. That's all, Their panties are in a bunch. I can't believe this. This can't be true. Aliens are real. Oh my God. Well, the ancients were like, yeah, they come from that star right up there. And, if it weren't cloudy, I'd be able to point outside. And there's the dog star that's up in the southern hemisphere during the summer this time of year. So, I'm sorry, Virginia, but aliens are real. But, the vice president believes that they're demons, that they're somehow interdimensional. Nah, maybe some. But he's like, all aliens are demons, and they're no, sorry. But he hasn't studied the way we have, and maybe he has seen some stuff, and he's like, nah, I don't believe it, because of the church and the Christians and things like that. They're demons, right? Everything has to be related to a demon. Everything has to be related to the church. Oh, the church says that's a demon. Well, probably looked like one, still does. But that doesn't mean that that alien is a demon. Now, it looks like one and maybe talks like one because that's what the Catholic Church and other Christians said they were, when actually they're from outer space. What? Oh, well, they can't travel between the stars. You don't know the same physics that these folks do. They can bebop from here to there in no time, you know. Now they can put it in, overdrive and bebop to there, and it would basically be like going through a wormhole, sort of. Portal would be more like it. Here's an opening, and they're on the other side. You know, they're all they look at something in the distance and go there. Quantum physics, right? If you think it at the same time, if you think about something and where it is, you just you go there. It's not about how much distance do you travel, it's that you go there. What? I would never be able to thank him enough. Oh, yeah. Dante, you talking about? Yeah, me neither. And for, as you know, Richard, and myself, for some reason, I found Dante years ago when he was Dante, you know, and the Alien Races book. Oh, damn, years ago. And then when the channel was leaving, and I did a video myself, and it's still up somewhere in my old, 6, 7, 8 years ago, when I pleaded for Dante and them to not give up on us. Remember that? Me to say to way back '06 and 7. But I pleaded with Dante in an open hour long, and they republished some of what I did on their channel. And which was like, wow, what? You guys, they heard me, right? And so over the years, when that channel left, somehow I found Dante in another way. It just like, oh, look, there's Dante on another channel. But like recently finding Pathfinder. And like, I'm not quite sure how that came about, but Pathfinder found us, had been on this channel in the chat. And I'm like, so after all these years, I somehow have stayed connected with Dante through the channels, through Pathfinder, through his channel. You know what I mean? And it's like, I didn't plan this, you know, but I'm glad it's happened this way because, you know, for the many people, then not many people have watched my videos. And that's okay. You know, it's not about the numbers, it's about who you reach. It's like us talking right now, having this opportunity to have a conversation. It's a little one sided, but anybody in the chat can say is what they want. But, and it's my clock says it's almost time for 20. My clock is slow. Actually, yeah, it's time for 20. Yeah, around us everywhere was at different channels. Yeah. And so the fact that we're still here and the fact that we still get information from Dante, and just, the other day I saw another one from the Pathfinder channel, and I'm like, whoa, cool beans. Oh, there's another alien, the Grassic, like he had shown us years ago. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I remember that one, and there's so many of them that, he's the Alien Races book. It's like, here's a new chapter. Here, remember this one? And these folks are from here, right? And so, for those of us, it's a refresher course for me. It's like, oh yeah, I hope I don't meet one of them guys. Then there was that guy that time he was standing on the street at nighttime, and off in the distance you could see the street lamps, and he was talking about, when he gets closer and you could see the lamps flickering as this entity that was kind of sort of outlined, got closer to him. And he had his dog with him at the time, Doopy. And I think he had a pistol too, because when it got close enough, you could hear gunshots. But, that was a bunch of years ago. But I was like, I was watching that and he was recording it live with his cell phone. And I was like, I can't even imagine, having an entity coming up on me like that. And so it's like, and of the different other things too that I've seen and watched over the years. So it's like, holy mackerel, Andy, you know, and that there are folks out there, who are trying to disprove the fact that Jesus did not exist. And it's like, well, I don't think he existed in the way that the Bible says, but in the way that Dante has shown and with the nails and so forth. It's like, you know, I don't believe the Bible and neither does he. He said, the Greek Orthodox were the ones that got it the closest and they missed. So, and that uh, um, the folks in Ethiopia might have the closest deal, you know, to what the real truth is, and that but that none of them got it right. Hey, Witch Moon, what you doing? So by Dante showing us the alien races book, and um, God, that's been 15 years ago at least for me, at least. There is the same one caught on CTV across a car park into a wall and out into a restaurant and touches a man, and he got electrocuted. Yeah. And then there's the one that there was a being walking down the street, and this being came out of one person on the street, and you could see this dark figure, shadow being, and then it entered into another person walking down the street. And it was like, holy shit. And then there was the video of on the corner of this city over there, um, where there was one car chasing another, good guys in front, bad guys chasing, went around a corner, and something um, was out on the street. And when you showed it, when he zoomed in on it, it was black goo. This black stuff, tarry looking stuff that was on the street, and that was trying to attach itself to the tires of the Azazians. And I was like, that shit was wild to see that black goo oozing across the street, you know? Holy crap. You remember that one, Richard? They are too controversial for YouTube. Yeah. Oh, is John Price on? Hey, John, how are you? I was going through some stuff, and I noticed way back when you had joined my channel, and I was like, John Price. Oh, yeah, that's when he joined. So God bless you. So, but yeah, Richard, they had that black goo from the black goo, three parts of it, and also three different types of it. Yep. And years ago, there was that German or Austrian physicist, and they had found this stuff, this black goo, and they tested it, and they showed how it moved and how it did this and that. And they tried different things with it. And Chloe, how are you? And so it's like, yeah. And then there's the black goo that came out of the bottom of the Gulf of Mexico at the time from the BP Earth thing that the Alien franchise used it. Ridley Scott 30. Yep. Love you too. I love you all. Big old hugs. Let me give you a little bit of a physical update. I went yesterday to the hospital, and they are fitting me for this machine, the radiation machine for low dose radiation for osteoarthritis. And I had to hold my arms up over my head and hold on to these posts. And they fitted me with this air pack around me. And it blew up, and I had to hold my arms still, and I had to hold my head still. And then they CT scanned me. And I'll know within a week how they're going to do the treatments. So I will let you know as things go on. But I've had issues with my blood pressure, skyrocketed way up here, making me feel loopy as hell, and then dropping to the point where I'm like, so my cardiologist suggested my meds, and I'm doing better. My blood pressure has stabilized, and so it my blood pressure going up and down and up and down. It has been really difficult to concentrate. Thus, I have not been doing many or any live streams. I haven't had the brain power. And that's without that. That's not even counting of doing a 20, you know, but which I want to do now. So y'all grab yours and so I'm looking very Norris Queen, Chloe. Um, so the low dose radiation for pain therapy for my osteoporosis arthritis. Um, 2 doses a week times 3 weeks for 6 doses. And when I talked to Roy yesterday, actually it was the day before, it was Tuesday. This is Thursday. Sorry, it was Tuesday. So Roy said they've treated 50 patients. And out of the 50 patients, 75% of them had immediate relief and didn't have to come back. But out of that 50, which is 75% of them, there's about 40 of them had relief. And the other ones had to wait 8 weeks and then they went back and they got better relief after a second treatment. So I'm looking at this and I'm thinking to myself, by the end of June, I might be able to walk around without pain or very little pain. And that would be it'll be transcendental if that actually happens. I love the Hulk. Yep. Them old series, we loved them as kids, didn't we? So this transcendental, this low dose radiation is, if it actually works, Mossy Man, what you doing? I will. I would show you the thing, but I think it's out in the. I think I left it in the Jeep. Um, but I want to pass it along because they've been doing it in Germany and out over there for the last 20 years with great success. And so, you know, I'm glad I've got this young buck. He looks like a deer in the headlights. He's a thin gentleman. He's a nice man. He really is. But he's like, Dave, he said, I think you need to, you would be the perfect candidate for this. Why didn't you tell me this 3 years ago? Well, because they just finished the cancer center over there at the hospital. And they just now have come up with all the equipment and the technology at our hospital to be able to do this procedure, right? So I'm like, okay, I'll be number 51, put me up there. I'll talk about it. I want to pass this around. Look at how many people suffer from osteoarthritis, especially old age at our age. And it's like, how can you mean there's hope for us old people? Because I told my friend Rob it's been 2 weeks ago. I said, when I first heard about this, I said, I'm sitting here looking out the window, just, oh my God, I hurt so bad. I can't get up. I want to go outside and play. Want to go, do something with the canoe. I want to go fishing. I want to go, and I'm in pain just sitting here, And it's like, God Almighty, I'm 73 and a half. Is this how it's going to be for the rest of my life? Is this all I'm going to have to look forward to, is constant pain for however long my life is? And I was like, golly. And so I refused to give up, right? What's happening with the neighbor? I have not followed through on enough, and I need my ass kicked. Okay, I need my ass kicked. I have trouble trying to type on this damn laptop. I hate it, but I'm gonna have to get over it. And yeah, the tree cutters. Yeah, there is no. It's been 3 months, and I have not followed up on it like I should with the lawyer. And I can't find the words, but here's the thing. I'm having writer's block, and I have to describe how many trees, what the value of them are. And so I've been him-hawing around. It's like, so I finally come up with, I'm settled on it. But see, my blood pressure has been going up and down and up and down. I haven't been able to focus. And then there's the computer not wanting to turn on, and the fudge on, and it rooking all over the place, and me just closing the lid and going, I don't want nothing to do with this. So, and between being sick and with my heart and with my blood pressure and that going on, I have not concentrated enough on that topic, and I need my butt kicked. So, but like I said, I've been having trouble just trying to focus on anything. One reason why y'all haven't seen me on YouTube, I just have not been able to turn on the damn thing, right? So, but anyway, hopefully, um, with my blood pressure, being regulated more better than it is. Yeah, but I should have done this 2 months ago. And one of the issues I had, and I finally found out how to do it, was the only way that the lawyers would receive this was that if it was, um, oh crap, what is it called? A PhD file, anyway. And I didn't know how to get it into that. I could get it into Word or all these other simple text, but I couldn't figure out how to get it. And then I found the, um, then I found how to PDF. Thank you very much. What did I say? PFD? Legalese, yep. And so I couldn't find out how to get it into that. And it's like I went through all of the little this one and this one. I'm not new to computers or programs, so I was like, it's got to be an export this. Oh, and then I found it under one of the things, and it was export to PDF. And I was like, looky here. So, but it took me 2 months to find that with what I had to work with, right? How do I export it to PDF? So then I lost the file that I had started working on it with, which was in Word. And then now I'm using um, open source uh, um, software. And now I was like, it's got to be in here somewhere. Bam. So now I my the last 2 weeks my blood pressure thing it literally I've been like this. I'll be awake for 10 minutes and then asleep for 4 hours. Then I wake up long enough to go pee and take my medicine, and I'm out again. And you can't get nothing done like that. So, but now that my blood pressure is stabilized and I feel more like a human being, it's like, oh, okay, but so, and I'm feeling really guilty that I haven't done it by now. But there is no um, statute of limitations on this, right? And the fact that it's been 3 months, it's been too long. But in a way, I know how to word this now. For the last 3 months, I have been, which I have, how much of the tree's worth? What is it going to cost to have this done? And now that I've come up with a $25,000 deposit, you know, it's $1,000 a tree for the bigger ones, and it's $500 a tree for the smaller ones. And there are 20 of the larger trees I counted, and that I can take pictures of and or video if need be, and that there are at least 10 other trees of the smaller variety, only, this big around, versus this big around. Um, and there are at least 10 of those that were uprooted. So 500 apiece. So there's, $25,000. That's, that's how I can, that's how I arrived at the number. Cause like, it's like, well, I was grasping up here and it's worth $500,000. We're going to sue him for this. And it's like, yeah, but we got to start at a figure that's actually, we can put a sure enough because, within the state of Georgia, $1,000 a tree ain't nothing. So that's sort of where I started. So it's not the value of the tree. Well, it's pushed over. We have to have it removed. We can't go in there and tear all the other trees down to get it removed. We're going to have manpower to cut up and then to have it removed. That's physical labor. That's tough, and so, and you're working in the woods, you're working at, conditions, and so it's like, so then there is the replacement value of those said trees. And when you get a tree that's this big around, you ain't going to replace it easy. So we have to replace it with trees that will grow up. But look how many years it's going to take for those trees to get to where those trees were that big around. So the replacement value of what he did to the trees. So, but that's what I got to write up. And so I've been at a writer's block. And so y'all say a prayer for me that I can get this shit done. I need to get her done. It needs to go in. I'm paying a monthly fee to keep the lawyer hanging around in the background. And it's because I haven't, but I couldn't figure out how to get it into a PDF format. It was driving me nuts, you know and my low blood pressure, my high blood pressure, low blood pressure, high blood pressure, blah, 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 blah. Chest hurting, gotta have my meds, so, but I'm still breathing. And, a month or so ago, I had another heart attack. So it's like, that didn't help any. So it's not been fun and games the last 3 months. I got one from Atlanta, and all he needs is for me to get this information to him, and he's off to the races. He's like, send me the stuff, but it's got to be in PDF. And I'm like, ah. So better call Saul. Yep. Yeah. Did you watch that series, Better Call Saul? Is that where you're coming from? Because some of that stuff, that was funnier and shit. But anyway. Say prayers and poke me, y'all. Poke me. Did you get her done yet? I need poking. I would love to have Saul. Good. Poke me, y'all. Okay, it's 10 after. Like I need an excuse. Yeah, I got to go see my pulmonologist. I'm also, have you quit smoking then? No, sir. But I am sticking to a half a pack a day, although a couple of days ago, I was smoking like a damn fiend. Every time I turned around, I was emptying the ashtray and lighting another one. And I ran out, which I bought some more today, but I was going to run out today anyway. I buy 4 packs and a half a pack a day. That's 8 days. So this should make it to the first of the month, the third of the month. So I will have money to go on for the month of June. Boy, it was tight this month. Paying for my golf cart has really put a knicker in it. But anyway, so going back to aliens and pennies in a wad. I was listening to Barbara DeLong on YouTube, and she's a mystic, psychic, person who's been watching aliens and stuff, and she did an interview last week with a lady that I had heard years ago on the radio or some different places on the internet, and it's Skywatchers over. Oh, it's North Georgia. Actually, it's North Carolina, just over the line, and it's where Tennessee, North Carolina, and Georgia join. Um, oh man, I'll think of it in a minute. I had it, and then it just went right over my um, Starships over Cashiers, North Carolina, and I stayed there. I used to go up there camping. Sapphire Valley's up there. It's beautiful up there, and she's been watching aliens go in and out of the mountains up there in the Carolinas and North Georgia for a long time. So she was on with Barbara DeLong, and they had a really good conversation. And she goes, somewhere there's a video out there of one spaceship shooting down another. And I was like, wait a minute. I have talked about me witnessing having this orange orb come out of over from Tallahassee and a white one appearing, shooting a laser beam at it, disappeared, and the orange one blinking out of existence. Wait a minute. I if it wasn't the one they were talking about, I witnessed it here in South Georgia. What the hell? Wait a minute. I saw that. And so they're like, yeah, somewhere there's a video of, once you, and I was like, but I witnessed that. Holy crap. So I was like, there was sort of a verification for me that someone I've been following, Barbara DeLong, that I have, subscribed to her channel, and the spaceships over Cashiers, or something like that. I've been aware of that lady for a long time, and it's like, whoa. So after all these years, she's still there, and she's Barbara DeLong, and they're still talking, and they're talking about having psychic impressions and communications of sorts. Like what's going on out there, where some of them are pretty evil out there, and then some of them, they just want to have a chat. Does order about 70 miles. What? But anyway, so maybe it's time for a ride up to North Georgia again. I miss going up there. I used to go up every 2 or 3 months, like clockwork for years. I knew my way around up there almost as good as I did down here. But then, too many people started moving up there. And then the feds were in the woods, arresting people for smoking weed or drinking a beer. They would literally come into your campsite at night, and arrest people. It was ridiculous. I was like, fudge on that. I ain't going up there, especially if folks are going to jump out of the bushes at me, but take a dog. And they'll make sure that if somebody's in the woods, they'll let you know. But still, I have friends of mine who had stopped on a bridge over a creek on a gravel road I knew where they were at, way up there in the North Georgia mountains and Forest Road. And a ranger came around the curve, and actually it was an unmarked person, but came around the curve because they could see in both directions, and they were sitting on the bridge smoking a doobie, and the came around the curve and saw him on the bridge. And so the first thing they did, of course, was like take a token, put it down and drop it on the ground. Well, this guy came up and harassed them because they were sitting on the bridge. And it's like, go down to the local river and sit on the bridge all the time to watch the river go by. So, and I've done it in North Georgia a bunch of times, smoking the bowl probably. But so he harassed them so much, found the joint, and arrested them both because they were smoking weed in the federal, you know, which it is. It's because it's a national forest, it's federal. So he arrested them both, took them to jail, charged them with a roach that was on the bridge that didn't quite make it through they were trying to scoop it away. And he was like, hey, stop what you're doing. And anyway, so they went through a bunch of shit. And one lady lost her job because she was working for the state forestry department. And because she got busted for smoking weed, now this has been 20 years ago, but she lost her job, and it was nuts. So I haven't been back to North Georgia much since then. And when I was up there going through one of the state parks, they had stopped everybody and like had dogs out and pulling people over. And it's like, oh, what's going on here? And here I am with a little bit of weed in my pipe, and like, oh my God, they got dogs. Holy fuck. Well, they were pulling folks over for like bunches of weed. And they were like, come on through, come on through. Me and my little old pickup truck with the bad front end, come on through. He was like, okay, what you do? Well, I'm just, looking for a place to go kayaking, camping, whatever. Okay, see you later, just passing through, but they were stopping people and pulling their stuff out of their vehicles in the state park. And I was like, man, I think it's Old Stone Fort or up in there in North Georgia. And so, but anyway, so I'm afraid to go places anymore. They're not near like that down here, so stay close to home. But so anyway, but I miss going to North Georgia. And there are some spaceships. There's some weird things that I've seen when I was going to North Georgia a lot. And man, I was up around Cashiers when I was seeing this stuff. So I had heard this lady I can't remember her name, on the radio. She's written several books on UFOs and stuff like that, up around Cashiers and other people talking to her about stuff. So, but the fact that the interview with her and Barbara DeLong, it was a really good interview, and I could really, having been to Cashiers, having when they talked about one blowing up the other one, I was like, I seen that one. It was like I was involved with what they were talking about. And it was like, yeah, there are other aliens, and yeah, there are different kinds of spaceships, and yeah, they're not all. And I was like, right on. Here's these two ladies about my age who were talking shit that I could verify in a way, especially the one shooting down the other one and blah, 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 blah. So it's like, so there are people my age, and I mean this, I don't mean it rudely, but here's these two elderly women. I was going to say these two old ladies, but these two elderly women who have been following this trend for years, right? Spaceships over Cashiers, and she's written books, and Barbara DeLong, and all the things, and here they are after all these years trying to keep people informed, updated as to what's going on. And so one of the things they were talking about was how it was going to be hard for people to understand that, yes, Virginia, there really are aliens. And yes, there really are spaceships. And yes, there are different kinds of them, like there are different kinds of automobiles or pickup trucks, So it's like, I was so relieved to hear these two elderly ladies. And I mean that with, extreme. I'm elderly, right? I get it. And to hear these two ladies talk about stuff that I was in tune with, it was great. So look for Barbara DeLong and Starships over Cashiers or something like that. And it's, like I said, it's in North Carolina, but just over the line from Georgia, near Sapphire Valley, and I can't remember there's a famous gorge up there, and that one of the rivers runs through, and where it comes over the falls is it's beautiful. Can't remember the name of the river at the moment, or the name of the gorge, but what y'all talking about? 12:21. Oh, it's time for one. It's stupid. The weed laws here. Well, here's one of the things. Yeah, here's one of the things that has happened in the United States. They have changed the weed laws from a Schedule 1 to a Schedule 3. So it's no longer in the same category as heroin. It's now in this lower category. Now, it's going to take a while for the states to catch up. But federal law says it's still illegal, but it's a Schedule 3. It's no longer like heroin. So, folks he didn't legalize it, but he did the next best thing. He took it out of the heroin category and put it down lower in a 3. So, being able to use weed now for gummy bears and things and stuff like that, and elderly people can now get chemotherapy if they have to get chemotherapy. They can smoke weed and they're not going to go to jail, and so it's relaxing a bunch of stuff. And so it's gonna take a year or 2 or 3 for this to settle out with the states, because the states are like, well, like here in the state of Georgia, over an ounce is a felony. Well, a felony of what? If felony now is not like heroin anymore, and marijuana is more like, here's a ticket, go home. Oh, there's a bunch of people they should let out of jail, like immediately. Like if you were, like me, I had over an ounce of marijuana and they charged me with a felony, and they were going to, send me to jail for 10 years for, an ounce and a half of weed, because an ounce is the max. And then it's a misdemeanor up to an ounce. And then it's felony above that. So now the felony is like a, third, whoops, it's a Schedule 3 now, not a 1. What does that mean to states' laws? It should mean that y'all, quit trying to treat this like narcotics. Damn Governor Abbott is all against the Mary Jane. Is he really? That's a shame. Well, here's the thing, though. Because it's dropped from a Class 1 to a Class 3, there are a lot of people that are going to go, now listen here, you can't be thinking that old, geeky shit. Was watching a channel today. I land on stuff that's so weird. And it was this guy that he had this little brass pipe about this long, and it was all intricate and stuff, and it's really cool. And he was like, he had this. It's an old guy like me, and he's like, I've had this thing for years. And he said, I wanted to go and meet the people who built this thing. And he went all the way up to Colorado or someplace, and where he went to these guys' shop, and they had a building out back where they were still making pipes and things. No, it was California. But anyway, so he went and talked to these guys, and they're a couple old dudes, like the old dude that took his pipe up there and was like, yeah, this is one of our original prototypes. And we've been making these for years, and people really seem to like them. And, and I was like, old dudes, if you looked at them, you'd go, what? These are two normal dudes, and they've been making, specialized weed pipes for 20 or 30 years. It's like their business in their backyard. And I'm like, what? So, but anyway, things are changing. Um, a bunch of us thought they'd be changed by now, but at least it's no longer a Schedule 1, it's a Schedule 3. And the aliens, I'm sure, love that, you know, because Cheech and Chong years ago, remember that one where they went into the field and smoked that ganja? It ended up being up into outer space, and they had uh, Tommy got or was it Cheech? Anyway, they ended up with some Martian, cocaine type space dust. That was a crazy one. Um, and Cheech and Chong are still alive, you know. And Tommy Chong is selling different types of drops and oils and things like that. So good on him. And still smoking weed, and he got really sick and has overcome it and is you know has survived. He's in his 80s, so good on him. But anyway, cheers, y'all. I missed it. Well, it's good catching up with everybody. And how many people do you know that are going to have their panties in a bunch? Oh, he was busted on piss tests in the 80s. Oh man, that had to blow. Um, but I was busted in Florida for having uh, methyl deoxyamphetamine, MDA. It was really good. It was pharmaceutical, no lie. Uh, we cut it in half, and other people were cutting it half, and people were still going crazy on it. And then I got busted for growing that little bit out here in my backyard. And then they downgraded it because of the helicopter incident to, an ounce of weed. So it was a felony. But, there it was so dry and nasty. And of course, I was stripping it off the plant when the helicopter came over. Stop what you're doing. We have a weapon trained on you. Holy shit. High powered rifle and a Huey, looking down at my little hippie ass, stripping the leaves off these puny little marijuana plants. But that was fun. Um, so it'd be interesting to be able to. Can you retrograde that? In other words, if I say, look, it's not a Schedule 1 anymore; it's a Schedule 3. Can you reduce that ounce of weed from a felony to a misdemeanor charge now, and take me out of the felony range of stuff so I could buy a firearm? However, I saw today one of these channels with firearms. It's black powder gun, okay? But you can buy shells that you pack, and you got to pack it down in your gun just the same as you would any other black powder. So, but this thing was, um, it was shooting through a piece of, 1/4 inch steel and leaving a hole that big around. Pooh! And like at 50 yards, it was like blam. This thing was badass. And because it's black powder, it uses smokeless charges. You still have to use a ramrod. It's black powder. You can buy it and they'll send it to you in the mail. But this thing was like badass. you know, Holy crap. I had no idea. I've got my 22 pump action um, air gun, and it's badass. Um, and it sounds like a 22 when it goes off. But I could not believe. So I'm going to have to look into this black powder thing because I'm like, it'd be too it it's too big. I want a 22 long rifle. I want a 22 Magnum. But this thing was like leaving a hole and stuff this big around. Holy crap! Now, if you were shooting a deer, it'd put him down. It'd put a hole through that son, all the way to the other side. You drop him, I'll tell you what. Um, they was goofing around. It was like, now, what's the difference between, if you needed a gun, and I have discussed this, but not much over the years, but have discussed it. If I had to have a rifle or a weapon as a survival weapon, what would I want? Would I want a 30-06 or something, like that? No. What I'd want for me would be a 22 Magnum, you know, and with the shells. And I'd really like, I used to have one, a Winchester style. It held 11 shells, uh, uh, 10 in the thing and one in the chamber, I think. But they were discussing that a 22 long rifle is actually uh, a 12 gauge auto. But as far as for shooting, not for self defense now, we're talking about survival. That for small game, rabbits, squirrels, whatever other kind of things you might, need to be, turkey, um, and that a 22 long rifle would be the best option. And I absolutely agree. And they were showing different things, and it's like he had set up this little stuffed bunny down on the road, and he shot it with like a 30-06 and blew that some bitch into pieces all over the place. And he went, well, no, what am I going to eat with this? And the guy was like, they were two buddies talking about which rifle would be best. And it's like, well, the small game was what a lot of people, possums and the Beverly Hillbillies and possums and raccoons and small game. Survival if you really need it. So, but that a high powered weapon is not what you need. And so even a 22 long rifle, if somebody's wearing body armor, you need to shoot around it. But what as far as self defense, what they were given to the Army years ago, and so it wasn't to kill people, it was to shoot them in the leg. And if they just shoot them in the leg with a 22 would slow them down and sometimes cripple them to the point where they're going to be down. They're not going to be running around wanting to fight. And so it wasn't that the 22 long rifle was not to kill someone. It was to slow them the hell down. Hit them in the face, hit them in the neck, not necessarily in the body. And if you become a good enough shot, you can hurt somebody with a 22 long rifle. Now, don't mistake it. Them old timers, they had 22s all the time. And, they could plink, plink, plink at one another. And you could put an eye out. You could lose a leg getting hit in the leg and hitting that femur, vein artery. And you can hurt somebody. So, but the idea was not to kill them, but to slow them down. So it's like, and a 22 long rifle has enough, a little bit more power than a regular 22. But that sure enough slows somebody down. And you can take 2 or 3 more shots at them, hit both legs and maybe in the groin, because they don't necessarily have body armor all over. So if if you're aiming for the right body parts, you can sure enough use a 22 long rifle for self-defense, but that more practically, the 22 long rifle is for small game and for actual how am I going to survive? And down here in the woods, a high-powered weapon, you want a 22, you know. So, but anyway, um, but going back to the Barbara DeLong, and I wish I could remember that other lady's name. I'll have to look it up. Um, but Starships Over Cashiers and Barbara DeLong, an intuitive, uh, a someone who uses future sight. I can't think of the word right at the moment, but um, there's a lot of double barrel 410. Yep, I had a 410. I loved it. Actually, I had a 20 gauge that I liked even better. But um, and if I was going to be shooting small game and stuff like birds on the fly and stuff, I'd want that 20 gauge. I got a 25 cal rifle that's as powerful as a 22 long rifle. Yeah, I bet you it's probably more powerful. I wanted, if I can ever get to it, I want a levers action 22 Magnum like I used to have. That's what I want back, you know, because it was powerful enough. You hit a deer in the head, you're going to drop him, you know. Um, and but it's still small enough of a caliber that you won't tear a rabbit up too bad, you know. And the key thing about any weapon is to be able to aim. And so these two gentlemen who I watched this afternoon talked about, that the key thing about the 22 was being able to aim it properly, you know, and the whole thing was accuracy. So learn your weapon. You know, if it has a tendency to shoot and pull down to the right, then to aim a little high and to the left, and sometimes it works that way, you know. So you sight in a weapon, and they were talking about using just the sights on the gun without using a scope or anything. They were just like, so you're sighting it in and you're looking at that and you're at 50 yards and you go plink, you know, and it's like, well, you're down and to the right. So the next thing you do is you pull it up and to the left a little bit and plink, and hopefully you're closer to the center. So it's all about the weapon, you know, and it's all about learning how accurate you are with your weapon. So and that goes with anything, you know. So, but the idea that if you're thinking that a 22 round of any size is going to go through body armor, forget it. But can you slow somebody down with hitting them in the thigh or the groin or the arm or the shoulder or, anywhere? You know, people say, well, you're not going to hit them in a vital organ. Don't need to. Hit them in the ear. That's going to slow somebody down. Hit them in the neck. People die by getting hit in the neck with a round. So, you know, um, but if you can aim at those body parts instead of full armor, you could stop somebody just as good. So, but anyway, I don't know how I got off on that. Maybe it's about. Oh, here's a question. So, what kind of weapon, right? So, say what we have is a 22. Is the 22 going to be able to save us from aliens who have laser weapons? Are we gonna have to war with some of these other critters? So, what type of weapon would we want or need? Do we need something that's high caliber? If they've got a force field, would a high caliber actually do any good? It's going to bounce off. Um, what would be one of the things that was brought up by these two gentlemen who had a couple of different types of styles of 22 weapons, that it's harder to pinpoint where somebody's shooting with a 22 than it is with a 30-06. Oh, look, there's that son of a bitch, you know. But if it's like pink, where'd that come from? You know, kapow. And with some of these rounds that they have, and with a suppressor, um, you know, it sounds like a cap going off. You know, my air gun 22 is as loud as what these others would be. So, but where's it coming from? Sounds like a loud cap gun. So it doesn't sound like a, you know, a really, you know, I can hear somebody shooting with a 12 gauge or a 20 gauge over on the other property over there, or with a large caliber rifle. You know, hearing my 22 go off is more like a firecracker, you know. So, but anyway, um, but this idea, I don't think we're going to have to shoot each other. Of course, them folks that we're talking about, you know, we're going to have to pull up down there with them Southerners. We're going to have to go down south and show them what it is. You listen to some of these black women talk about that. This one sister, she's like, y'all come on down here. We got alligators. Y'all come on down here. We, you know, we got snakes. Y'all come on down here. You know, we got rednecks who can, you know, shoot a bird on the fly at 30 miles an hour. And, you know, and they can do it with one eye closed. And have you ever heard about, you know, come on down. Come on. You think y'all going to pull up with us Southerners? Come on down here. So I know there's some folks that got their panties in a bunch over a bunch of stuff. The politics thing, right? Showing up. The redistricting. Oh my God. Just to, after all this time, what this law just now says is that gerrymandering don't matter. It's going to be all us. Don't matter what color y'all. This is what the districts are. This is what, you know, um, district. Yeah, what my state um, representative is, you know, and it's like, well, but also meaning for the state of Georgia to the state senate, or you know, not necessarily to, you know, to Washington, but um, it's like only those folk like a crazy man Warnock, who's our senator at the moment for 2 more years. Oh God. Um, Raphael Warnock. The stuff that comes out of his mouth is like, I no wonder I'm not a Democrat any longer. I'm like, I just can't abide by what he says. And whether or not I'm a Republican or a Democrat, he's an idiot. He's an idiot, but he's a Democratic, you know, got voted in as a senator, but we got Mike Collins, who's going to be our other senator, and he's a Republican. And the 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 Democratic senator for Georgia is not going to be senator anymore. Folks have had it up to here with him. So that's going to be a good thing in the Senate to have another Republican from the state of Georgia. In 2 years, we'll get rid of Raphael, so if somebody will run for Senate. So pennies in a bunch. There is a bunch of things changing. Senators changing, which means that there are people who want to see, you know, the UFO issue come out in full fledged. You know, they want the truth to come out, whatever it may be. They want the truth to come out. And I agree. And we all agree. Whatever the truth is, show it to us. But Virginia, UFOs are real, and so are aliens. We got to start there, you know? Now, where they come from, what is their message? Why do they want us? Are they using us to, are they putting us on the barbecue somewhere and, on the far side of the planet or of the moon, Are they taking us to the inside of Antarctica and, and never mind. Who knows, really? But some of them do not have our best intentions. That's for real. And other ones more benevolent than the other guys. So let's make sure we don't shoot the wrong ones. You know what I mean? And there's supposed to be some folks that look like mantids that are the good guys. We do not want to put flamethrowers on these people. We want to have a conversation with them because they do have our best interest in the mix. Part of the thing that Dante talked about years ago, that when they first opened his eyes up to what was going on, they asked him, he was playing soccer with a bunch of his mates, and they went over and got into a car, and they were like, hey, do you know who you are? And, we want to remind you of who you are. You're 13 years old, and it's time you remember who you really are, Azazel and, Dante. And they unmasked themselves, and here he was in the back seat with a couple of mantid looking creatures, and he like about freaked out. And so they helped him remember his previous lives and who he truly was. So but it was the mantids that were like bong. And so for what it's worth, and I can't remember his name at the moment, he's a British chap. He was um, oh man, he used to be on all the time. Um, but he was a British councilman or something for a while, and but um, that he was contacted by the mantids many years ago. So this idea that the mantids are the good guys, um, help me out, Richard, if you're still here. What's his name in Britain? That oh man, I can't think of his name now. And I'm getting tired, and I'm a little stoned. And it's an hour and a half I've been doing this. So, but yes, Virginia, aliens are real, and some of them look like giant insects, but they're the good guys. And some of them look like us, and they're the bad guys. Not Timothy Good, no. Um, oh man, I can't think of his name. He has done um, remote viewing and remote healing for people, kind of thing. Um, Not so much. No, his mother was in, some kind of, CIA type of thing in Britain, and he was raised that way. He was a councilman or something in one of the, and everybody knew that he had talked to aliens. He's not has not hid it in any way. Golly, but I haven't heard from him or in about 2 years. So it's like, but what is his name? Simon. What's his last name? Simon. Simon. Simon Parks. That's his name. But so anyway, that he was in contact with the aliens through his not Professor Simon, no, he's another fellow I watch, but no, Simon Parks. And a lot of folks, oh, he's, he don't know what he's talking about, and oh, and blah blah blah. And he's been attached to some other folks that were like uh, the another fellow who's been mostly accused of fraud. That oh, the um, the money's going to come out and everything that's been hidden and everybody's going to get the thing um, and none of that's happened yet. You know, oh, it's going to happen 5 years ago. It was going to happen 10 years ago. You know, now you don't hear about it at all. You know, oh, they got all this gold, and oh, this guy, and and it's being transferred, and oh, it's sitting in a cave in Taiwan, and oh, it's blah blah blah. We're all going to be rich. It's all going to come out, and the thingy's going to be the thingy, and none of it happened. So it's like, but there were some things that Simon Park talked about over the years that I had learned about. So some of the stuff he talked about, I could sort of verify on my own end as true. And so it's like, so I don't think Simon was full of shit like some of the other folks around him. Okay. I think Simon actually knew some stuff and was more on it than these. A British politician and representative like claimed that he had been in three relationships with E.T. species, Greys, reptilians, and the mantids. Yep, that's him. And he used to do videos, podcast kind of thing. He was on with Carrie Cassidy years ago, and some other folks that have uh, since just drifted into obscurity. He even admitted that he has a child with one of the, I didn't know that, supported claim that he had been made by dozens of officials and people for a long time. Yep. So I listened to Simon Parks years ago before I heard about Dante, even. So it was like, because he was out in the open and openly discussed it. So, you know, me and the internet, and for some reason these things came to me. Like folks are like, who the hell Simon Parks? And I was like, man, I knew about him 25 years ago, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, maybe even going back into the 1990s. I'm like, have you not heard of him? And you've been, tuned into the UFO thing. How come you haven't heard of Simon Parks? Not pointing at you all, but I mean people that I've met. And it's like, have you ever heard of this guy? No. Well, I thought you were in tune with this UFO stuff. And then later on, they go, well, wow, you talked about this a long time ago. I'm like, I'm an old fudge, you know. I'm trying not to use the F word, but I'm an old fudge. I have been around a long time. We saw UFOs flying around over Tampa in 1968. We called the radio stations. We called the WCTV, no, WFLA in Tampa. Do you guys have these things on radar? There are these things that are going zigzag. We tried to get in touch with MacDill Air Force Base. And, we were teenagers watching, spaceships zoom around over Tampa, in 68 and maybe 69. But I know it was at least 68. So it's like, okay. So, for me, I have the lead for a long time, long before the X Files. And then people watched the X Files and they were like, hmm. And now with Ancient Aliens, folks are going, hmm. And now with the congressional things of people, whistleblowers, actually discussing, that, oh, look, there's a tic tac. Yeah, okay, call it something. It's an anomaly. Oh, it's a UAP. It's a fucking, okay. Now, I think that an unmanned drone that is spherical and not very large. Who is that asking me? How am I doing? Oh, my blood pressure's been all over the place. I've had a couple of heart attacks this year. I am signed up and ready to go have low radiation dose therapy to try to alleviate or get rid of my pain in my back. That would be wonderful. Oh my God. But, so if I could get up and be able to walk around more, oh man, what a blessing that would be. And I will keep you all posted. Who is that? Drummer God? I haven't seen you. Are you another name or it's good to see you? But my memory's like, when was the last time? Boy, that's been a long time since I've seen you around. But I'm glad to see you. Happy, happy, happy. You know, continued blessings. And I do always pray that you all will continue to learn how to accept and receive the knowledge and the healing and the wisdom. And I mean it. Kevin! It's Kevin! YouTube shows sometimes different names. Yeah, I know. Change is good to see, man. You too. Always. And I haven't been on here enough. I mean, for shame for me, but man, my brain has just been, and then I've had issues with, literally, I've had issues with my heart. And the last heart attack I had, I should have went into the hospital and I didn't. I suffered here. It took 4 nitroglycerin, and you ain't supposed to do that. And my doctor rode my ass about it. Don't you ever. And I was like, Doc, I literally couldn't find the fucking phone. Couldn't find the flipping phone. And my red one here that's hooked up to the house, it had fallen down. And my cell phone was over here somewhere in the dark. It's a black phone. Oh, it's sitting right here right now. But I'd sit it over here on the desk to get it off the computer and whatever. And I was on the bed, and all I knew was to take one of my heart pills and take a nitro and lay down. And I do not like them heart attacks. They are no fun at all, let me tell you. But since I've had the stent put in, I'm coming up on a year in September that I got the stent. And I do feel better. But there are still days that I'm so tired. It's like I'm sitting here in the chair going, man, I want to go outside. And then I fall asleep sitting here in the chair because I just don't have the energy to sit up, and it's like, I do not like them days. So I'm not supposed to have caffeine, but I have started to drink more coffee again. Lay off the coffee, bad on my kidneys. Okay. Lay off the coffee, it's bad on my heart. Okay. Can't have caffeine. But I got to have something to keep my ass awake. But the blood pressure thing, it has literally been going like this. And what's your diet? Do you take any multivitamins and supplements? No. I take what they tell me to take. Vitamin D, extra, CoQ10, which goes along with my meds. Um, I haven't had any B12, and here's the reason. I try to eat beef, raw beef, well, lean, steak kind of thing. I'm not too much into pork. I eat some chicken, but I'm more into beef, protein, and but they check my blood all the time, and my B vitamins and all that kind of thing. If there was an issue, they would tell me. I've had blood draw. I get blood drawn about every 2 or 3 months. Somebody wants to check my blood for something, and off it goes. So I know I don't have cancer because it would have showed up. Um the thing that does show up is that I'm just right at the line for being diabetic. I've been pre-diabetic for 5 years, just under. I think the number's like 6. Just go with me on this. So, and I've been like 5.5 for years. And recently I hit the line at 6, which says I'm diabetic, but I'm so low on the scale. So I'm looking at my diet, and I've cut out my little Debbie cakes, and I've cut out sugar stuff. I mean, I was abusing it, but at the same time, my diet was for shit. I lost 10 pounds. I'm down to 181 pounds, and I was 198. So I brought my weight down, paddling on the river and trying to do more exercises, even at my old age and with the pain. I'm still more active than I was a year ago because I've lost 10 pounds. Well, let's see, 91, 15 pounds, 16 pounds. I've lost 16 pounds at least. And I'm keeping it off. So I'm not eating a lot, but what I was eating was way too much junk. And so I'm more, I started cooking again. I made some um, ground beef pasta thing with some macaroni elbow noodles that I ate on for 3 days. It was really good. I can be a good cook and so I'm learning how to cook again rather than just TV dinners. So I'm getting back into wholesome foods again. I'm not supposed to have pasta, but screw it. You know, I'm not eating. Yeah, beef and pasta. Yeah, um, and I've I got a hold of that catfish, and I have been catfishing twice. I'm hoping that I can get some more fish. You know, a couple of them big catfish would be nice again to be able to, fillet out and cook them up because that was good. Not just catfish, but fishing for catfish is one of the easiest. But so and we got a hold of that catfish that was like 36 inches long. And Brad, when he comes up here on the third or fourth, is going to bring me some catfish because he got the two biggest fish, and he's like, "Man, I got some in the freezer. I'll bring you some." So I'll have some. I'll have some. It was fresh when we cut him up and put him in the freezer fresh. It's not one of these. Well, I bought it at the store kind of catfish. So, but that's good protein. And but the local store, they have decent cuts of meat. They used to cut it themselves. But I want to find um, um, a butcher again. There was several places that used to be down here that you could go in and they would somebody would get beef or pork or whatever, and the Dunn Brothers, I think in Tifton, was one of the places, and people would take in goats or pigs or whatever and have them slaughtered, and then Dunn Brothers would get like a third. or a quarter of the hog or the pig or whatever, and the other in payment for cleaning the pig for the folks that brought it in. And so same thing with beef. And so they'd bring in a cow or a calf or something and cut it open, blah blah blah, 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 and they'd end up with a 25% of that cow. So they would have some really good steaks at a reasonable price, and they were it hadn't been frozen. It fresh, you know. So need to find a place like that again. There were several places down here in our area where you could go get a steak this thick, and it would be so good. And now they've been processed, and you don't really know where the cow's been or from. And it used to be local grown, and so need to find another place. I think there's a place in Pavo, but might have to go buy $100 worth of beef to get a decent price, but that's okay, you know. But anyway, so for the folks that have been here, um, yeah, and I'm not supposed to have bread, right? So what I've been doing is now I'm trying to eat like a Mexican, which I used to do. In fact, I had it tonight. I had some sausage that I bought, local sausage, smoked sausage, and I chopped it up in small pieces and added a little bit of ragu spaghetti sauce. Of course I had some shredded cheese that I added on top of that. What was the other? Oh, I added some minced garlic to put on top of that, um, and chopped it all up and rolled it up in a tortilla and munched down on it. That was my part of my supper tonight, and it was good. So I'm staying away. I know it's still a bread, but it ain't bread. But it is, but it ain't. And I'm fish, chicken, vegetables. Yeah, minimal carbs and saturated fats. Yeah, I don't eat a bunch of fried stuff, and when I do, it's olive oil or a little bit of sunflower oil. Um, and I don't eat fried bacon and stuff like that. In fact, the hamburger that I fried up the other night was the first I'd actually had hamburger in years that I cooked myself and made into a sauce. But damn, that sauce was good. I'm I got some canned mushrooms that I should have added, but I forgot that. But other than that, I can't afford bell pepper. I got a friend of mine that's growing some peppers, and maybe he'll bring me a couple, you know. But the things that I used to cook with, I can't afford it. I substitute it, or just remember the days when I had, and this would have been good with some more bell pepper. Oh well, you know. So I buy ragu that's got chunky things in it, extra virgin olive oil. Yep, that's what I've been using olive oil years before it was ever popular by other people. I mean, because I knew in 1998 and 99 about the coup with canola oil and the fact that they had changed it into rapeseed oil and some other stuff. They weren't really using the true canola oil, and the fact that that what they were doing to trying to do to sunflower oil, and it's like no. Well, the only problem with sunflower oil is it has such a low burning point. If you want to really um, deep fry something, you do not want to use sunflower oil. You don't. It's too low of a burning point. So, but to pour in, the bottom of your pan and oil it up good, fry some eggs with it, perfect. You know, but if you were going to deep fry some pork chops in it, nah, use olive oil. But anyway, because it's a higher boiling point before it burns. So, but how many of your friends are going to have a problem with aliens? I want to ask, I want to stay on topic. I know I've been jumping all over, been talking about food and stuff, talking about my health and all, but I want to stay on topic with the alien thing because, I look around at my friends and um, yep, smoke point. Uh, and that I try to tell them, say, listen, the aliens are like, oh no, aliens are demons and they can't actually um don't worry about it. I go off on tangents all the time. um but there are folks who believe yeah, UFOs are real, okay, and that's as far, and I don't mean this bad, but that's as far as their tiny little brains will allow them to go, because they just don't want to comprehend anything beyond that point. So there are folks who are going to go, oh, yeah, you know, UFOs are real. Well, okay. You know, does that mean if UFOs are real, then it must mean that aliens are real? What? Well, who you think is driving them? People are small minded. Well, not necessarily. Some people are small minded, I agree. But there are some folks that I know that they just, they, there's a part of their brain, I can look at him and see him trying to calculate. And they know me for years, like, right, 15 years. And they're like, Dave, I'm like, I'm telling y'all, aliens are real. Here's a video, you should watch this. Oh yeah, but the Bible says, and Jesus Christ, and yeah, well, some of them aliens are sort of related to Jesus Christ, by the way, the Christus group. You should look into that, but oh no, aliens are demons and there's no way that they could come from other planets. Well, how come, Native Americans say that their ancestors come from the dog star Sirius? How they have known this for thousands of years. How come this is what they believe? Oh, well, that's just a myth. Wait a minute, hang on. They knew that there was a double star up yonder in the sky before people looked at it with a telescope. What? Oh, yeah, they knew it was a double star. Wait a minute, but it only looks like one. Look at it with a telescope and you go, some bitch, there's two of them. Oh, my God. Yeah, well, how come these Native Americans who never had a telescope knew that there were two stars up there instead of one? And oh, my goodness gracious. So these people, native folks on this planet, knew about stuff about the stars before people with telescopes knew it was true. That's the honest truth. So you can't deny this stuff with the people who have known about this thing for generations within their communities. So the people nowadays is like, oh my God, UFOs and stuff, and but there are native folks all over the planet who have known this stuff to be true for generations. So, but white people that have just like, blah, 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 blah. And it's not that they're stupid, but it's not been something that they've been raised generationally. Now, if you're Native American and live out west, you know damn well and good, that you have learned these things and you're looking up, you know? You know that there are things that are happening in the deserts out in the Southwest, out in West in general, um, more so because there's more open space, but stuff happens around here just not as not as much, not as frequent, um, and they're cloaked more. But out west, so they're folks can see these things flying around. They're on the Navajo reservation. They go in and out of mountains. I mean, Skinwalker Ranch and stuff like that. So I see flying ships a lot. Do you? Yeah. And you're in Texas, right, Chloe? But so wide open spaces, and I've set up, there's a place I go about 2 miles up the road that's one of the highest spots around here. And it's really clear. I can see in all three or four directions. There's a forest on one side, but open fields on three directions. And I can see the horizon. There are no street lights. It's away from the city. And on a clear night, man, you can see all over the place. So I've gone up there many a time and sat up there, with the lights off and a pair of binoculars, or just watching the sky. And it's amazing the things that you can see. You know, um, I have just been witness to a bunch of stuff in my lifetime by looking up at the sky at night, right? So, and daytime too, but more at night. So, but things that you just go, there's just no way. Because the, I was listening to, I was talking with my spirit guides several years ago. I'm coming home from a guy's house. I helped uh, put a new clutch in his truck for him. I didn't know I had to unbolt the whole goddamn truck to get at. Anyway, so a Chevy S10. Whoever designed that some bitch should be shot. Um, but so I was coming home from working on his vehicle. It was about 12:30 at night, and I'd been having this, conversation in my head. If there are real aliens up there, and y'all are talking to me, and it's like this was early on. This has been 15 years ago now, 10 at least. And so I'm having conversation with myself, but I'm having conversation with my higher self too. And they're like, "Well, Dave, do you believe us?" And I'm like, "Yeah, where are you? If if you're really up yonder talking to me somewhere, then why don't you show me sometime what you folks are about?" So I'm driving home down the road, and been down this road a bunch of times from his house to mine, the egg and butter road, no problem. I'm driving along, and they go, "Well, look out your window." And I was like, "What?" And they was like, "Look out your window to your right." I'm driving the truck, and I look forward, and I see what's this scattering of light. And I stop and pull over, and I get out and look. And from one horizon to the other, something has been blowed up. Let me tell you, it wasn't just an asteroid. I've said this before. I went home, I got online, I reported it, and nothing ever showed up. This thing with all different kinds of colors had been blowed up over here, and was blowed up and then scattered all the way to the horizon. All different kinds of colors. And I mean, it was like, and they were like, "See?" And all I could do was, I was standing on the side of the road. I think that I turned my truck off, but jumped out and looked up, because it didn't just disappear. It just scattered and was just lit up all over the place. And they were like, "Is that proof enough that there are, that we're up here?" And I was like, "Holy shit." I mean, it happened while I was thinking, I was talking out loud, like, "Okay, guys, are you for real up there? Or are you ever going to show me anything?" And they were like, "Well, look out the window." You know, holy crap. So, anyway, I've had these things happen to me over the years. And, do I believe in this stuff? Yeah, because they had literally told me to look out the window, and they told me to go outside that day that I saw the orange thing get zapped by the white thing, right? So, in listening to my brothers and sisters, from in outer space or wherever they are, having conversations with me, and they're like, hey, you should pay attention to this, or you should go over there, or you should do. And nothing that I've ever, they ever, oh, is Miss Sheila on? Hi, Sheila. So, never have any time that I've heard these things talk to me that have they ever gave me bad advice. Never, never. So kudos to my friends up yonder. They've been a little quiet here recently, um, mostly because there's been just so much chatter about so much stuff. It's like, you know, I was waiting on a chance because my blood pressure was so wacky. I was waiting on a chance for my body to get back. And also, what's the subject to discuss? Are your panties in a bunch about aliens? So here's the topic. So, as much as folks just don't want to believe, or there's no way that that could really happen, or listening to some of these guys, um, Neil deGrasse Tyson finally came out and said, ooh, maybe aliens are possible. Neil deGrasse Tyson now. So, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, there are all shapes and sizes of um, extraterrestrial vehicles. The triangle ones always seem black. Did it go over you? Are you talking about Chloe? The disc one did, huh? So all of us that are sitting here right now either believe it or have had an experience, right? So a close encounter of something. Did you ever see the Dante video? What? Called Submarine. I don't know. I might have seen it because every time one came out on his channel before, I was right there. But in going back over through some of the videos, this years ago, a submarine in space. I think I remember something about that. Anybody remember John Lear from the Learjet? He knew Bob Lazar back in the day. He was one of the ones that, but he was a test pilot, and but he said years ago, long before he died, that that there were whole parts quote spaceships are being uploaded at different times, and that there were spots out there that things were being made, and S1 out there, blah blah blah. And that to get them into space, they were just using some kind of transport. So they'd build a section of something and haul it out into the open desert, and then zoom it up into space. And that one of the things was they were taking up submarines, and that they were using those because why a submarine is because if it can go underwater and not leak air, then it's a pretty good candidate for being in space, if it's already watertight, right? So it's like, so he had mentioned submarines in space. He's been dead now several years now, but 15 years ago, submarines in space, and also aircraft carrier type, you know, um, Navy. Why is outer space, still controlled by the Navy kind of thing, rather than the Air Force? Well, now it's the Space Force, but it's because you know, submarines in space are, a lot like under the water because they're airtight, watertight. You get the drift. So anyway, but the British guy who remember the British guy who hacked the USA? Oh yeah. He was famous. They wanted to shoot him. They wanted to lock him away for a long time. He was on Gary McKinnick. That's right. Oh, I remember that. And he was telling folks that who was doing what. And John Lear knew a bunch of people and a bunch of test pilots because was a test pilot for a bunch of stuff back in the day. And so, and then John Lear came out and started talking about space things, and people thought he was just freaking daffy, right? And but he had too much information. Too many people were giving John Lear information. Um, what USS craft, all Navy like, but space. Yep. And so, and then Trump comes along and turns it into, and see, this is one of the things that it's like, Trump has never really said, I believe in UFOs. But what did he create? The Space Force. So if he didn't believe in UFOs or the possible threat thereof, etc., then why did he create the Space Force? Well, they're using the Space Force now because they're using satellites over, Iran and places. They're keeping track of stuff. And okay, but the Space Force, really, because he already knew some stuff, I think, and that the Navy was already up there. And that why do we need $1 trillion is because we got to support the Space Force, for crying out loud. And at some point, some of those UFOs are going to be ours, but not all of them. So the truth needs to come out. So right now he's kind of sort of, well, let it all come out. He said, y'all, if you got something on UFOs, put it out there. Just open it up, right? Be honest. So, but the CIA and folks that got stuff, they don't want to turn loose of, They no, their folks have been in there. We ain't telling folks this, and we're not going to do, and we're not going to. But and so it's an act of Congress wouldn't even do it, because some of the folks who have been involved with this thing, Tim Burchett was a congressman from Tennessee, was on another interview, and he was like, they won't tell us in Congress nothing because we're only here for 2 years or a term or two. And so these guys have been embedded in these programs for so long that they know where the information is and they ain't turning it loose. So it's like, and that's so true. So, but, here's the thing. Do aliens exist? Yes. Do UFOs exist? Yes. Are some of them ours? Yes. In the Space Force, why create the Space Force if there's not a necessity to use Wait a minute. And some of these things have been coming out about, oh, yeah, Grissom said something about something on the moon and something about somebody else saw something in Apollo 17 and something. And, oh, yeah, we had pictures of that back, 30 years ago. And oh, yeah, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, we do have transcripts of that. And what? Y'all knew about aliens and stuff all this time, and you ain't said nothing. But now Trump has made a space force, and they've sent people around in a nice looking spaceship all the way around the moon and back. Ain't that sweet? And honestly, let them get back on the moon, and maybe that's, and maybe that's when the alien craft come out and go, go back home. That now this is our territory. Now we lay claim to this side of the beach. This part of the beach is ours. Y'all got to find another spot, and it ain't here. So, years ago, was watching through a telescope and could see, these craft going across the face of the moon. There's one, and then there's two or three, following him behind. I was like, what the hell? Watching flying saucers cross in front on the face of the moon through my own telescope and going, crazy, man. Crazy. So, yes, Virginia, there really are aliens. Yes, Virginia, there really are spaceships. Now, from that point on, how that breaks out to people, who's going to show up, what they're going to look like, all that is, I say, up in the air. For those of us who've been watching Dante, we know that there are 79 different races that have been here. Not that it exists, but 79 different races that have been here. Not that are here now, but who have been here and may come back, Um, so it's just gonna be how it shakes out as to who shows up, who stands up and says, okay, here we are over here. Mantids or, grays or whites or whoever they are. It's going to depend on who shows up and says, hi. And we won't know that until it happens. There's, I say, my back channels, folks that, who the Arcturians say they're going to show up and going to give everybody a good time. And it's like, okay, have heard that one for years, right? The Palladians are going to show up. Okay. Well, what about these folks? Okay. But y'all got to show up for me to believe it, because hearing about it through somebody's channeling, to me, I will listen with open mind and go, okay, but I ain't seen y'all yet. Y'all ain't showed up to me. You ain't channeled through me. Not that that's a bad thing, but it's channeled through you over there. All right. And you're the Arcturian person. Okay. And they're saying this. All right. Been saying that shit for years. My folks just keep saying, hang on. It's a coming. So I keep hanging on, and I know it's a coming. So, but I won't know it until it gets here. And you say, well, Dave, okay, why? Well, because things have to be in the right order. Tomorrow might be the perfect day. The stars and the planets will align just right, and all of a sudden one of them goes, okay, gang, here we go. And it may take another 6 months or 6 years. But the conditions, whatever the conditions need to be up yonder, with the folks who are going to, Trump can say, yes, Virginia, there really are UFOs. And yes, there really are aliens. And then what? Well, why do you think he invented the Space Force? And then what? And how is that conversation going to go? So, we got this little thing going on in Iran at the moment. So, to bring up what's going on in space or space aliens would really be a distraction kind of thing. Not that they want to, but what if the aliens showed up and said, we agree with Donald Trump. We don't want nuclear. We don't want them to have nuclear weapons either. Give us that radiation dust, Okay. So, we don't know who's on his side. Excuse me. Let's do it 20. I filled this up and didn't. So what's the future going to bring? The future is going to bring more stuff out into the open. The future is going to bring, oh my God, those UFOs really can travel across the universe and not a very long time. It doesn't take 1,000 years to get to the next star system. It's only like maybe a couple of months. Okay, and you're over there. I mean, look at 3IA Atlas that came in, zoomed through our solar system and out the other side. How quickly it traveled through our solar system, came from out there somewhere, and went through and heading back out in less than a year. So it's like, okay, so here's something that's not under, it's kind of weird propulsion, it's twisted and turning and blah, blah, blah. It looks alien, and it was alien. But the fact that it came through our solar system as fast as it did, it's like it. Do you know how far that is? So that thing was booking, but it wasn't traveling interdimensionally. It wasn't traveling through porthole. It was just zooming through space. And look how quick it came through our solar system. It's like, wow, I don't know where'd it come from. Out yonder somewhere. They can kind of figure out about where it came from its trajectory. But where did it really come from? Out there somewhere. Yeah, but where are they? Out there somewhere, So, to me, 3IA Atlas proved to me that you can go between the planets like that. You get up enough speed and that's not a comet, no joke. So you can got something that comes into our solar system, travels between the planets, just boom, 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 boom. You mean we can't get to Jupiter? No, we can't get to Jupiter as fast as that thing did. It went around the sun and got to Jupiter faster than we could, Oh, wait a minute. That thing was hauling butt. So is interplanetary devices that could travel between planets physically possible? 3IA Atlas proved it could be possible because it went zooming past. Well, look, can it theoretical my butt? It went from here to there in 2 weeks. We can't, it took us 3 days to get to the moon, and it went from the other side of the solar system to Jupiter in a couple of weeks. No, we can't do that. We can't get that much speed up. But here's this interstellar object that enters our solar system, that proves that you can go from planet to planet in a relatively short time with the right amount of speed and whatever propulsion that thing had that got it to going, right? Because it obviously wasn't the sun or the solar system that was giving it its speed. Pay attention to that one. So that's why it's alien. Um, and it might go out there somewhere and turn around and come back for all we know. But the speed of that, oh, we can't get between the planets that fast. Yes, we can. Yes, we could. If we knew how 3I Atlas was moving, what was its propulsion, it obviously wasn't a comet, because it didn't act like the swing around comet thingy. No, it didn't. And look how quick it went to Jupiter. Yum. It did a flyby faster than we could have, faster than you could get through the Jersey Turnpike. Never been there. So there are things that are possible that have been shown to us by things like 3IA Atlas that interplanetary travel is possible. Here's an example. Here's this thing, flies through, it goes by every planet, even if this and that, taking pictures as it goes by, waves at the folks on Mars, and we have to understand that there is science right in front of us. Oh, is it possible? Yes. Here's an object that came from somewhere in outer space, and it just proved it to us. So makes you wonder about ancient Vimanas with rock crap. Yes, absolutely. And the Dante showed years ago, if you believe it or not, the those the was it Tuttle something Tuttle, they found those rocks coming in that hit Jupiter. Well, Dante said that those were rocks that were sent by the Mater as part of a war, that they were rocks they found out in the asteroid belt and literally, slung it at Jupiter. And that, do you remember that, Richard? I was like, what? He was like, yeah, you see how those went there? Yeah. Oh, yeah, but, some of them, if it's in the asteroid belt, it doesn't take long to shoot something. It's sort of like in billiards. Jupiter's moving this way, and it's like, you punch this one and off it goes. And so, and I believe these folks had the technology that they could aim these things as they got closer. You know what I mean? But a giant rock, through the atmosphere would be like one way of, yeah, time is different. Yeah. And what goes on in space too, because one of the things that is interesting to me is there's not supposed to be anything in space. Space is vast and empty. But, um, but is it? It seems like there's some kind of friction in space. It's void. Well, is it? Well, there's stuff out there. There are all kinds of little rocks and things and stuff. But, uh, you know, it must be gooey in some way because some things aren't traveling real fast. They're just more or less suspended. We're the ones that are moving past them. So here's a rock sitting here. Where'd it come from? We don't know. Maybe it was the planet that blew up. We're not sure. you know, did it come from another moon? We don't know. Did it come from the Big Bang? We don't know. But here's a rock in space. Where'd it come from? I don't know. We've got all these near Earth objects. That one that looks like a peanut is really strange. Um, and how they took pictures of it tumbling, or if that's an artist rendition, I don't know. But the one that looks like a peanut is weird. But anyway, so we got all these near Earth objects. Where the fudge did they come from? They're not asteroids, are they? Are they from the asteroid belt? They're not comets. No, why? Because they're floating around us. And some of them have an orbit like this, and some of them have a. Where did they come from? Well, space is just empty. There's nothing out there. Where did these rocks come from? I'm just asking, trying to be nice. Where in the hell did these come from? They're floating around. I know. Well, did they get blasted off the moon? Probably not. Did it come from the asteroid belt? I would I would bet that they more likely than not did. Good night, buddy. I'm going to be out of here too soon. Squid and octopuses. Yeah, along with whales and dolphins. Um, but yeah, so the octopus looking things that are in space, right? And even some of the early Star Trek, the one of the as they were flying through space, they ran into this thing that was like a big jellyfish or something, right? And so it's like, and they're living in space, and so there've been a lot of comic books, comic type character type, um, Kraken in space, that have taken over and done and things, and so it's like, here's the thing. Was it one person's idea and somebody else said, wow, that's a good idea for a story? Or for me, it's like there have been times when I have been inspired by something and I find somebody on the other side of the planet had that idea 10 years ago. And I'm like, well, shit, I never heard of this character. But here I'm thinking about this cracking thing in space and blah, 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 blah. And they're like, oh, this guy developed this. Well, I didn't watch it. I haven't seen it. Look, I'm looking for the animation, right? And come to find out that, wow, this idea that I thought was sort of unique to me ain't unique, right? Calamari is brain food. Yep. And truth, though, I think Star Trek were kind of real. Um, and, Roddenberry was from around here, Roddenberry Library is in Cairo, Georgia, not too far from me. But the inspiration for some of the characters were inspirations. Where did he get the inspirations? Where did he get the ideas? From the universe. How did you make shit up? Well, this is how, where did the idea come from? Well, what if this, what if there was an octopus in space that grabbed the ship and Spock had to talk to it with this mind meld and it's like, wow, how could we make that work? And then they would sit down with a couple of planners and they'd figure out how they could do the CGI or whatever it was to make it look like it. So there was, but the story was there. But years ago, there were stories about things like that. So I remember watching it scared the bejeebers out of me. And I can't remember the name of it, but this little kid was looking out his window and it was in black and white. And he looked out the window and he seen his spaceship land and he went outside. It was on the other side of this fence and a road. And he went there and everybody that went down there disappeared. his mother and father, and they were all, they had the aliens had burrowed caves under the ground there, and everybody that went, got um, taken by the aliens and turned into mindless beings, and he was this 10-year-old kid, and but anyway, and and it was underground, and there was something about that show that just scared the tubies out of me, and so I got chills, and I was like, whatever it was about that black and white sci-fi. So, but anyway, things affect us in different ways, right? But to the point, though, there are beings underground. There are spaceships that land, and they have all these underground tunnels and stuff. Well, that was the black and white in the 50s. What do we find out now? There are aliens underground in tunnels that they created. What? So that black and white 1956 ish movie is true. Was it based on fact? Because it showed aliens underground. The alien kind of funky, but not real. But it was the fact that if they grabbed you, and they did, and they turned you into mindless being, and they controlled you and all this. Um, but it was the fact that they all had tunnels underground, and that nobody believed the little boy, and even the sheriff was affected, and the sheriff tried to get to the little boy, and but now, fast forward 50 years, and we find out that, oh, aliens have been living underground for a long time now. Oh, so how true is the alien stuff from the 50s and early 60s? I have watched some of the old stuff and went, holy crap. But one of the Earth to the Moon, or one of the ones that the scientists were talking inside the rocket about this and that. And the physics was like, I could not believe what they were discussing. And it was right on the money. And it was in black and white in the 50s. And it was like, so this stuff is not new in Hollywood. It's not new in the film industry. If anything, um, they're rehashing old stuff because they can't come up with anything new. The imagination was already there in the late 40s and early 50s with flying saucers and the whole thing, and it's into the 60s. But that flourish in the 50s of films, them black and whites, some of them stories was right on the money, honey. Let me tell you. So how the spaceship looked, how it maneuvered, and just stuff. So uh, beyond a good story, what it's like paint paintings of art. If you have a taboo subject, aka in a film, or do a painting and show it rather than say it, yeah. A bunch of folks were visionaries. Some of the stuff that I've seen, I've been a visionary as well to myself, you know. Um, but so, boys and girls, aliens are real, UFOs are real, the different types and underwater, underground, you know, yep, 4C and stuff. You heard me tell the story about when Mother Mary showed me it when I was 12 or 13. You know, you're going to tell people about stuff and be ready. You know, and I've been talking for the last 10 years with my YouTube channel here. God bless y'all for being around. I love you all. And so it's like we need to stay together, you know, and if something gets a little too kinky, we need to get together here or otherwise and not freak out, because it's like, wait a minute now, before you get your panties in a wad, Let's have a conversation. But the bottom line is for, I want to say most white folk. There are some black folk that they believe, but they still believe the Bible, and that's okay. But they believe stuff is possible, and I think it goes back to literally their roots, okay? Or that they just are more apt to believe certain things like root doctors and stuff like that. And that, aliens and our ancestors, talked about, coming from the stars and, yeah, okay, white people, they're like, my ancestors come from England, my ancestors come from France, you know, my ancestors come from Poland. Boy, howdy. So, but anyway, it's been 2 hours and 30 minutes, my dear friends, and I'm getting sleepy. I got to take my meds, and I have swore I was not going to make 4-hour videos anymore. But I love you all. I do. I believe the elder, not the so-called experts. Oh, absolutely. The experts are lying their ass off because for whatever reason, and I truly think that some of these folks, it's like Neil deGrasse Tyson. He's come out like UFOs might really be real, and aliens might really be real. It's like before he's like nah, no way, and now he's like well maybe. So he's changed his story. So who told him to change his story? Or did he believe all along, but he was paid to keep the narrative that that shit don't exist, y'all. We don't have the technology to travel between planets. And then Three Eye Atlas goes zooming by, and we all went, well, look at that. So, but now that he's like, well, maybe they're real. So then what? Are they going to admit that aliens are real and not demons? And demons are another subject. They're interdimensional, nasty kind of, you know, jinn kind of deal. You know, okay, doke, they're over here, but that don't make them aliens. And vice versa. So, we in America, for example, and forgive me, Greece or Italy, we over here in the United States, well, them Europeans and the Italians are like, wait a minute, you don't clump us with Europeans. And the Greeks would say the same thing, like, wait a minute, Europeans are like France and over there. We're over here, we're Italy. We're damn near an island, we're like Florida. We're a peninsula, and Greece is kind of sort of an island and a bunch of stuff over here. And we're not really Europe. We're just attached to the back side of them, It's like Europe's over here, right? No. But see, for us over here, we look over there, well, Italy, that's Europe. Greece, that's Europe, Next thing you know, you'll be adding Russia into being part of Europe, But for people who don't understand, these are separate countries, separate feelings and things and stuff that's happened and ranges and terrains and all kinds of stuff. It's different, right? Just like here in the United States, you go out west and Montana is different than, Arizona. Then Arizona is different than South Georgia and Florida, the Everglades, the Okefenokee Swamp, and, and these things, and Louisiana. So, different places, different feelings, different people, different stuff. So, but we can all be like North Americans, all right? We can all be Americans, we can all be together, different states, but we can all have the same feeling and the same, tightness. And so when them aliens come, um, but it's going to be interesting to see who stands up. We already know who Dante is and the Charistus group, and they have already pretty much stood up in a lot of ways, but not really stood up, you know. So who's going to, Dante said that, years ago that if he had his way, he'd have done this and this and it'd already be, open. But the media has got far, far worse propaganda. Well, that's one of the things that's going to happen, and it was said years ago that the only way that anybody was going to believe it is that if all channels showed the same thing. Everybody watched the same thing. Aliens interrupted, and everybody was going to see and hear the same thing. There wasn't going to be through no media. There was going to everybody was going to see the same thing at the same time on every channel all over the place. Now, that's what it ought to be. Maybe 6-6 is what it's going to be. So I just know that it is happening. It's going to continue to happen. And I got to get out of here because my phone's running out of battery. Um, but it's been 2 hours and 45 minutes too. Smoke a bowl. Uh, yeah, the last video I did, YouTube just disappeared. I tried to make it public and went to go find it, and the damn video is gone. It's just gone. And like, what? So I've had my issues with YouTube for a while, and like, who am I? Go figure exactly. I mean, who am I but this small little channel of, I think I don't quite have 1,000 people. I think the last I looked was 985 people were subscribers to this channel. God love you all. But it ain't like I got 9,000 or 9 million. I had 985 sweet people who have thought enough to go subscribe. So, and I'm thanking every one of you, and I pray for every one of you. I do. So you know, I was thinking the other day, like they used to talk about, we're all members of the league of like-minded beings, right? Like-minded beings. That's how it's going to be with aliens. The ones that we get along with, we are already members of the league of like-minded beings. Because when we meet the right aliens, we're going to be able to communicate and go, oh, you're a member too. And they're going to think, not even say anything, and they're going to go, and they're going to smile and go, mm-hmm, yeah, welcome to the league. And then there are going to be folks that are going to creep us out. We're going to go, I don't, but we're still going to be able to connect psychically because that's going to be one of the new things, right? Folks are going to have to understand that some of these folks are going to communicate with us psychically. They're not going to chat with us. They're just going to think a few thoughts. We're going to be able to see pictures. We're going to be able to understand where 1,000 words are just not going to be able to. And an alien's going to be able to look at us, smile, and transmit a little movie to us of where they're from and what their planet looks like. And we're going to go, oh my God. And, we are the real illuminated ones as we can see and be blinded. The cards I pulled tonight on Robert's channel, we got to keep our eyes open. The cards said, that we need to keep an open mind. That turkey, and I saw a turkey cross the road today in front of me on the way home from the store this evening. I mean, a beautiful turkey. And when it jumped up on the fence from the ground, and then when it took flight, it was like, man, it was a beautiful male turkey, big feathers, and I mean, he was flying like, and I only thought the turkeys flew like little short hops. He was buzzing, man, through the forest, and I was like, look at that sucker go. So, and they're in my backyard too. But um, so turkey was literally ran across in front of me today, and then I pulled the turkey card, which is the giveaway, and so turkeys, beware, or be aware, not beware, but be aware that a gift is coming, some kind of gift. It may be big, might be little, but it's going to be a gift and it will be significant. So, coming up. So, what's the gift? We have to be open to new things. Looking at the, deer. The deer says, to, gentleness, and that the path to the creator and is open. It's free of demons, where all we got to do is not fear it and go. And then the swan card, which is grace. Accept the grace from the creator. And how do we accept it? We have to accept what the creator has in store for us, what the creator has written for us, and to follow that track, and to, and not buck the system, and it's like, well, wait a minute, then, but that's how the ugly duckling turned into the swan. And the first card out was lizard. That's the dream time. And then the bear card was introspection. So we go into the dream time with introspection, and with the introspection of accepting the gift from the turkey. And, to use our female side to accept these things. So it's like, because it was the otter card that was pulled. So it's like all the cards were pointing to, you know, look inside ourselves and see what creation, and looking, with into the dream time, which is future time, and see what's there, and don't fear it. Do it. Move into that direction. Oh, Pathfinder, stay thirsty, my friend. Oh, God love you. It is so good to see you. I stayed on this line just to see you. Oh, cheers, my friend. Pathfinder, did you happen to see the video that I did about where I found whoever it was out there that had found that stick with the DSAHK on it, and the strange video of that was on the stick? Did you happen to see that? Did it go upstream anywhere? Where did that thing come from, and who lost it? Any idea? Because when I found it, it came to me very obscure. And that USB card, the chips are real, but the channel was not, and edited the footage. But it was the same footage that I've seen that Dante showed from out in space. Um, but anyway, the fact that it came to me by like, hey, look at this over here. And I was like, where the fudge did that come from? And I noticed it right away. And that's why I did the video. I was like, this can't be good. If somebody found this on the street and they gave it to somebody and blah, 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 blah. But the whole thing was like, I had to do a video about it. And I just wondered if, anybody else had seen it. It freaked me out when I saw it. That's for real. But so, anyway, took care of. I did my part, you know. But so, I'm curious. I'm always curious. But I'm curious as to the things that we've learned through Pathfinder and Dante and some other folks too that I kind of sort of believe. I believed a lot of what John Lear talked about all them years ago because he knew people who were flying the planes and he knew about S4 and he knew about Papoose Lake because he flew in and out of there with some of the things that he test piloted. And then his buddy, Bob Lazar, worked out there and all that stuff started. And John Lear was right there with Bob Lazar. You always hear about Bob Lazar, but you never hear about John Lear. John knew too much. He had too much information about too many things. He talked about bases on the moon. I think he talked about bases on Mars too, but he talked about bases on the moon, and that and the submarine spaceships kind of thing, because why not send a submarine into outer space, and that they would send them out, build them out in the desert and then put them and pull them out into the open at night after hours and zoom the whole damn thing right up out into outer space. And there it was. Why is there a submarine in Arizona? Because it's headed for the outer space. And that's been 25 years ago or 30 years ago. John was talking about that a long time ago. But nowadays, when people talk about UFOs and disclosure and things like that, I don't ever hear John Lear's name come up. And he knew a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff. And because he lived out there outside of Las Vegas, I think, and he worked, he flew some of the prototypes. He knew people that flew things. He knew people on the bases, John Lear and the Lear Jet Company and all that. He was a great contender. He wasn't literally some fly by night, but you never hear about John Lear and what he knew about things back in the day, back when um, um, I forgot his name. I was just thinking about Bob Lazar. I mean, him and Bob Lazar were the ones that got caught going out trying to look at stuff at night, but anyway, so it was John Lear. Does anybody remember? What is that to, Richard? YouTube? What? What's that for, Richard? Who is that? Oh, Mystical Feather. The clips are real, but the channel is not. Okay. Yeah. Stay thirsty, my friends. That's the link, I think, was the footage of the stuff on the USB card. Oh, Well, Richard, what surprised me about what was on the USB card is there seemed to be a little more than what Dante showed on some of the clips. I was like, that's it, that's it. Wait a minute, that's some more of that. Wait a minute, you know. So the clip seemed a little longer from what I remember, from what Dante showed of the same thing, right? The outside, Jupiter in the background and the spaceships and the thing. But the USB one was like a little bit different, a little longer or something than the original one that I remember seeing that Dante put out. So could have been that they just clipped it, what they knew, and that's the one that we saw that Dante put out, where what was on the USB was the original clip that had not been chopped or anyway. That's sort of where but anyway, the USB clip was like, the same but not, anyway. So it's nice that I can be on top of things for just being um, an old shaman in training over here in the corner. You know what I mean? It's like sometimes I'm like, okay, creator, I'm doing what you told me to do. Now, what is it that I'm doing? But I'm sitting here having conversation with y'all from all over the place. And we're able, I'm doing the yapping, but you all are also in the chat. And so, and because we're beings with like minded thoughts, we are in the league of like minded beings, then therefore we are sharing our thoughts in the quantum, and that we're having a merry old time. Well, I'm having a merry old time. I can't believe 3 hours is coming up, but I was not going to do this again. No, but it's so much fun visiting with y'all. It just is like, well, here comes 3 hours again. But, you know, how else can I, catch Pathfinder and Richard and all y'all without staying on for 3 hours, without being open and going, okay, y'all, here I am, and everybody drops in and says their 10 cents, and we visit for a while, and it's warm and fuzzy. I love it. Thank you all. And I do continue to pray each and every day that each and every one of you will continue to accept and receive, because you got to accept it and receive it every day. It's not like you do it once and go, yeah, okay. Nah, you got to continuously accept and receive the knowledge and the healing and the wisdom from the universe, because it's almost a continuous download. You know, League of the Like Minded Beings. You remember that, Richard? I talked about that years ago. We are all members of the League of Like Minded Beings, because if we think alike a little bit, in the quantum, we're all connected, right? And so it's like, well, we could know, but we connect on the quantum just because we're all here at the same time. Can't help it. You know, if you listen for 5 minutes, you have connected with the rest of us, like minded beings. Oh yeah, you're a full member, have been for a long time. That pump anything, Hawkeye, I think the footage is still on the internet. So what are we going to do for the future? So this is what I see for us. And I've talked about this years ago. Why are we here? Why are some of us here? Why have some of us, you know, pressed with this information? What good does it do? Well, it's going to come up right now that without being boastful, we know more shit than most folks, right? I mean, raise your hand. We know more than most folks, and maybe more than most folks will ever get to understand. You need to mention sometime about the night wolves biker gang, a biker gang that does good. I don't know enough about them, but I do know that the night wolves, and there are other biker gangs too. One guy that was in charge of the Hells Angels, they've all changed around and they're all doing, good things, that you say, what the ex Hells Angels. Yep, they're doing some wondrous things. And what was that? The Night Wolves? Night Wolves, yeah. Yeah, there are several that do. Um, in some groups, they're being, I want to say, it was like I listened to that one ex biker. He seemed to be being led, whether he knows it or not, being led by angels. So whether or not it's the Charistus group, but in listening to him and how he's acting and what he's up to and so forth, it's like, if he ain't acting, it sounds too much like he's working for the cause. And I haven't seen any particular signs. Now I should go back and watch his interview over again because he may have given signs that I did not see, because I was listening more than I was watching. But I need to go back and watch it and see what's his actions are or were. But so it's like, so is he part of the cause for real? Everything he talked about and discussed, other than aliens, was that 100%, and I was like, wow. So, um, hmm, if he has not been whispered to by the angels, somebody's whispered to him, and what he's talking is good stuff and positive stuff. They're doing positive things. They're helping people. They're helping veterans. They're, child, folks. They're helping, and it's great. So society, where years ago, a couple of years ago, the notice was from the aliens that if we as a human society didn't step up our game, they would just piss on us, right? And even Dante said some things. And that's when I did that video. Please don't give up on us yet, because there are a bunch of us who are really trying and you ain't heard from us. And please don't give up on us, right? And so, and they even reposted part of my rant on Dante's channel at the time. So that's when I became more intimate with this whole thing, right? So the Night Wolves are not yet a motorcycle club. Not just, they are known for some strong Russian nationalism. Oh yeah, they've been fighting for the cause and against the Mater and the Vlash. They've been on some serious missions with Dante and etc. Yes, Dante showed that group before. Yeah, Putin's biker gang, right? That's the ones. Um, so with that point is that there are people all around the globe who are working for the Angel Group, you know, and there are, for me, I've not met any of these people directly that I know of, but I know that I've had angel guidance over the years, so it's like indirect or direct, indirect for me, but it's like I seem to be in the right spot at the right times. It's like, that's groovy. The fact that Pathfinder found me or us or Richard's here and we know about Dante and we can share information and we're members of the League of Like-Minded Beings. We're angel messengers and etc. And so that's why we're here to share the message. So, but not only that, but when the alien thing comes out, there are so many people that are going to have their panties in a bunch. They are not going to know what to do. And we're absolutely here to kind of smooth that peanut butter over the bread. It's like, don't, most folks are not going to be affected by this, at least not right away. But the fact that the disclosure is going to freak so many people out, and the truth about things like, yeah, a lot of us came from that star up there, believe it or not, you know, and that history is a lot older than, 6,000 years or whatever the Bible says, that it's wrong, you know. Uh, there were people here well, just south of me, and they were probably here too, but there's so much clay and everything. I might have mastodon bones in my backyard. I don't know. There's a lot of sand there. Uh, I've not seen anything stick up out of the sand, but the river in the backyard has been here for thousands of years. The Little Ochlockonee River. It has been flowing along. It's been here for thousands of years or longer, right? So it's just a main tributary and watershed. It's just the way the land is. It's been here a long time. A lot of sand in my backyard because where it brought sand from further north and dropped it down here. So, but it's still a river, and because of the land and how it is, it has flowed for as long as the land's been here, right? So, but further south, where there's more rock on the bottom, there are mastodon bones and tools and pieces and arrowheads and all kinds of stuff. You know, 50 miles south of here, 45 miles south. So that means that there was stuff up here as well. It's just that, it's got washed off from the clay or whatever. But down in Florida, where it was higher up out of the water back in, thousands of years ago. Oh, look, oh my goodness. Here's all this evidence of life in Florida, in the cave systems under the ground right now that are Florida's aquifers. That, guess what? The civilizations just around here where I live goes back to 14,500 years, at least. Here in this area where I live, within 45 miles of here is the Osceola River. It's closer than I think, actually. It actually starts near Boston, Georgia, which is just south of, almost due south of me in a way. And so, and Boston's only like 30 miles from here. So Danielle and Gabrielle, yep. So, have you heard any news as to how Dante's leg is doing? I was hoping to get an update on how that was going because it looked pretty nasty. Some of the pictures as we've seen. Okay, so my dear friends, I've got to take my meds and I got to get some sleep. I got a friend of mine's going to come see me in the morning, and I need to be able to wake up um, and it's been 3 hours. But so if folks don't have their panties in a wad, they're gonna. because the truth is out there, but they're not ready for what we know. And I'm not bragging, it's just fact. You know, I'm not bragging, it's just fact. We do love you too, Miss Chloe, and all of y'all. I do. Some missions need what? What was that? Need a different type of soldier. Absolutely. And I got my marching orders when I was 12 or 13. I can't remember exactly. I want to say 12. But you're going to be telling people stuff they're not going to want to hear, Dave. And I'm like, holy crap, don't tell me this. I'm a little kid. And so for years, I stayed freaked out about this stuff. But now I understand it. And so here I am, with the message that I didn't know this was the message I was going to, help folks with. But here we are, you know, and our mission is going to be to help other people along with this. So we need to be good to each other. Uh, they're listening. You know, if we were having negative energies and things with different people and we're mad all the time, and that's not the kind of thing we need to portray. And years ago, it was pretty much said that the aliens were listening and they had pretty much give up on society. But with things like that, the Hell's Angels turning around and helping people with other groups, and well, I think the Night Wolves or whatever they have always done well, but that um, there are other groups that weren't so nice that have turned their lives around, and that there has been an absolute shift in society. And so that might be the reason that the aliens didn't give up on us all the way. You know what I mean? But we had to turn it around. So we need to help them other folks along, because I know some Christian folks are going to freak out when they really know the truth. And, all I can say is, I'll help them best I can. So, my dear friends, I love you all. I do. Thank you so much for being out there. And don't give up on me. I'll be back. I've had heart issues. I've had back issues. I've had, all kinds of other. Okay. What is that, Richard? Tell me what it is before I go. Night wolves. Okay. So, dear friends, I love you. Please be safe. I will be back with you as soon as possible. All right. And I will keep you up to date with the low dose radiation therapy and how it goes. Absolutely. So stay thirsty, my friends, and cheers, my dear friends, and continue to accept and receive the knowledge, the healing, the wisdom, and the many blessings from the universe. Um, oh yeah, I feel my luck has already changed. I'm already signed up for this therapy, and they've had 47 out of 50 people have had excellent results. I just want to be you know I just wanted them to take some of the pain away, because I'm sitting here hurting right now. But anyway, I love you all. Thank you, Pathfinder. Thank you, Richard, as always. And feathered blessings to you. Blessings, blessings, blessings. Keep it together, my friends. Okay. And if your panties start to get in a bunch, just wiggle around a little bit and you can work it out. So until next time, I love you all, and be safe. Be safe, be safe, be safe. You gotta look over your shoulder, but don't be afraid. All right. We got whatever fear mongering thing is going on right now. We need to just take a deep breath and know that we got it. All right. And so I got to say adios for now. Stay together. Stay Frosty, my friends.